just me, or I'm starting to realize that we live in a world where we can never be certain that we are safe with any particular man? Every woman that I've ever known has considered how to escape a bad date and figure out a plan B if he turns out to be a rapist or serial killer. So it's funny to me how the society has managed to convince us and sold this idea to us that marriage is a safety net. But they never tell us how we can protect ourselves if the perpetrator is our legal husband. For centuries, the patriarchy has been seeking privilege and resources for men at the expense of women. Just look at the latest Epstein files that have been released, which include a list of powerful men from Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates to former Prince Andrew, sexually exploiting minors under the age of 18. Unfortunately, the fundamental structure of our society still revolves around men's needs and feelings. Let's be real, all of us are taught to believe that women can avoid being abused if they behave correctly, or that women can avoid being raped if they are dressed modestly. For this reason, society often blames women rather than looking at the obvious facts that 1 in 5 men admits to assaulting his partner. On top of that, sex is defined as what men want and is regarded as something women owe to men. On social media, we have witnessed millions of married men who think that their wives withholding sex means that they are being mistreated, and men who view sexless relationships as a problem with the woman rather than a sign that the man is bad in bed. I mean, it's a possibility that's never been publicly acknowledged. At the same time, the inequality in household labor is often treated as a minor issue attributed to miscommunication or simply a failure to implement the right system. But almost no one acknowledges that it's a mutual effort, and most patriarchal men openly view this inequality as an entitlement that has clearly benefited them for decades. Regardless of what the issue is, the patriarchy has taught us to center men's wants over women's needs, and we have always been told not to cause an inconvenience to men. This tells me everything I need to know. Honestly, being mindful of these facts can help women better weigh the potential risks and benefits of being in a commitment with men. Like I've always said, smart women don't play fair, they play to win. Listen up. Your desire for a wedding and your desire for a marriage are two different things. Let's be real. Wedding is a $1 billion industry. I mean, what's not to love? You're the center of attention among hundreds of guests in a fancy hotel or resort. It's so easy for women to get caught up in their fairy tale wedding where they dress up in the most gorgeous gown and impress their friends and family. Don't get me wrong, your desire for both wedding and marriage are perfectly valid. But the truth is, how many of you are actually committed to a lifetime partnership of till death do us part? Honestly, I'm at the age where most people I know are either getting engaged or married, but let me tell you the amount of people who have told me that they want to get married just because everyone else is doing it. And surprisingly, we still wonder why 5 out of 10 marriages often end up in a divorce. Let's be real, marriage and children are not shortcuts to happiness. If you're always feeling empty inside, having kids will only magnify it, and you'll wonder why you struggle to be happy when you have a picture perfect family. Society's timeline is bullshit. This is why getting married before knowing what you want, what you can compromise, and what you will or will not tolerate is a trap. On the surface, it may look like you are taking on the role of a perfect wife and a perfect mother, but you're subconsciously losing access to who you really are. And let's be honest, men don't magically change after a marriage. If you choose to get married to someone, you have to be okay with the person as they are and expect them to remain the same. If your man has a habit of playing video games all weekend, he will continue to do that in a marriage despite having kids. In fact, marriage is not a pet project. It's a commitment to be there for each other through thick and thin, not a commitment to change someone to fit your expectations. Also, you can't convince anyone to understand you if they don't want to. It's a personal choice. The truth is, love without mutual understanding is simply just attachment. Very often, this type of attachment is disguised as love. So if you're constantly misunderstood for the tiniest of things, just know that you're not being loved in the right ways. By overstaying your welcome in a dysfunctional marriage, it only confirms what you already knew, but you're just in denial of the truth because you can't accept the reality for what it is. And here's the thing, you can't fix a marriage alone. At the age of 16, I've personally witnessed a divorce from my mom, and I've learned so much about it. I've seen how devastated she was and the extent of her suffering from being married to a selfish and useless partner. For many reasons, the legal process dragged on for 4 years. Back then, it was considered a taboo to talk about the conditions and expectations prior to a marriage. So, this brings me to my next point. One of the biggest mistakes people make in the name of love is avoiding hard conversations, especially when they're about to get married. It's like you're ready to have a family with this person, but too afraid to discuss assets, finances, custody, infidelity, and other possible realities. After all, marriage is a legal contract just like any other business deal. But you'll be surprised that most couples don't talk about these things. They just assume. Let's be real, some women have a preference to stay at home after having kids, but their partner may disagree with living on a single income household. If you want to have the most truthful yet uncomfortable conversations about both expectations in a marriage, it's best to hold the discussion in front of a lawyer. In some countries like Singapore, where prenups are not enforceable by law, they can be highly beneficial in setting out agreements up front, especially when it comes to alimony and custody of the kids, as well as the division of matrimonial assets. In an event where things fall apart, there's a higher chance that the divorce will be amicable and there won't be much legal disputes moving forward. Honestly, I don't understand why so many women are afraid of speaking up for what they truly want in a marriage, in fear that the relationship may end if they ever voice out their needs, their wants, and their preferences. Recently, one of my friends is getting a divorce after 3 months of marriage. And let's just say that I wasn't surprised because there were many signs that things were just off. Let's start with the obvious. My friend has explicitly told me that his definition of marriage is purely convenient and transactional. His marital status is only meant to elevate his corporate and social image. He also mentioned that love does not have to be a part of the equation, as it's not a must for him, nor is it a reliable factor for getting married. Honestly, though, I don't think his ex wife knew about that. About 1 month prior to his wedding, I remembered asking him if he was okay because he seemed a little too nonchalant about his future wife and he was constantly getting drunk every week. He also rarely talked about her throughout the years, which was kind of a red flag, especially when their wedding was just around the corner. And here's another obvious sign. They were together for 5 years, but she has never once appeared on his Instagram until the day of the wedding when he was tagged by all his friends for the wedding content. It's okay if you're not active on any social media platform, but he used to post his exes all over his Instagram. So that says a lot about how much he doesn't really want others to know that he is off the market. In his opinion, marriage is a partnership, just like any other business deal. It has to be logical and strategic. And I get it. We're talking about a lifetime commitment, so protecting your best interests and honoring what feels important to you are essential to a long lasting marriage. Even though he's from a rather comfortable family, he still needs to work to fend for himself, but his ex wife comes from old money. Whoever says that men are not gold diggers have clearly not seen the world. Her family's wealth far exceeds his family in many ways, and I'm sure any man would love to date her. Let's be real. Her family's assets, her family's background, her family's business, her family's social status and influence are all precious commodities, especially in a marriage. The truth is, he chose to marry his ex wife because she looks good on paper. In fact, she has all the qualities that would make her a good wife on paper. On top of that, their marital home came from his ex wife. It was her dowry from her grandmother. He doesn't have to lift a finger or invest in her to get married. Don't you see how he benefits so much more from this marriage as compared to being single? Just so you know, his fear of being single by 30 speaks louder than the false sense of security that comes from being married. In other words, his fear of being alone feels heavier than his fear of being unloved. Although I believe that a marriage has to be mutually beneficial, just like any other relationship, I don't agree that you have to settle for a loveless marriage out of convenience because you are shortchanging yourself and wasting each other's time. It's also unfair to your partner as they may have fallen completely in love with you all this time only to find out that you never really loved them. After all, how do you live with someone and sleep next to someone you don't truly love? Unless you have specifically agreed to an arranged marriage. At this point, it's about the security, the stability, and the pressure from family that drives certain people to marry someone they don't actually love. He assumes that the partnership is stable as long as it looks fine on the surface. Let's be real. If you get together with someone who's not actively working on themselves, it just means that they don't love and respect themselves enough to do so. How can you expect them to love and respect you when they can't even do that for themselves? Let's be honest, no one is perfect, but being overly patient with someone who refuses to work on themselves can slowly destroy you. Men aren't confused, they know exactly what they're doing. You think he doesn't understand, but he just doesn't care. One of the most effective ways to protect yourself in a marriage is to trust your God given intuition. If a man is abusive, his behaviors, his habits, and his patterns will betray you. The moment you trust a man's words more than your own inner voice, you have already lost. Ultimately, it all boils down to what kind of marriage you're looking for and how to ensure that a marriage can benefit you in the long run, instead of becoming a prisoner to someone who's just taking advantage of the marital status for his own benefits. After all, you get to decide the narrative of your life. Do you want a life filled with misery and complaints or a life filled with peace and fulfillment? At the end of the day, we have to be responsible for setting ourselves up for failure. No more running away and blaming others for our bad decisions. Thank you for watching and remember to subscribe if you enjoy my content. Bye!